Access Tech Live. Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo with you today. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently announced that it's setting aside $2.4 billion in its upcoming budget to build capacity in artificial intelligence. Now, that is a lot of money and brings with it a lot of questions. So let's try and get some answers.
Yeah, let's try to do that indeed, Stephen. Michael Hainsworth is a name you might recognize from his years of work on television, including Canada's Business News Network, CTV Evening News. He's the host of the web series Where's My Jetpack, which we're definitely going to get into. Has been covering the business of tech for over 30 years. Michael, thank you for joining us this week.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to give you a quote, okay? We want to help companies adopt AI in a way that will have a positive impact for everyone. What does that mean? That seems so vague.
It's deliberately vague because, quite frankly, we really don't know what AI is and isn't at this point. It's the early stages in the game. The analogy that I was giving the other day was, you remember back in the 1990s when Photoshop became a thing for the first time? And you could always tell when a graphic designer got a new plugin to enhance the functionality of Photoshop, because suddenly, out of nowhere, every graphic designer was adding page curls to every corner, grime over every image, and flaming text across every graphic that they had ever produced, all because this little plugin would make that possible. And then we would sort of step back and realize we didn't need page curls on every image. We didn't need grime over every photo. And so maybe we need to get a better handle on what plugins we are and are not using in Photoshop. AI is sort of at the same stage. We're trying to figure out what this does well, what it does not do well, and how we can make it be ultimately a tool for good. And this money is going to help sort of get us down that path because, quite frankly, Canadians punch above their weight in the world of artificial intelligence. There are four key godfathers of artificial intelligence. At Boston's MIT, you've got Sandy Pentland. You've got in Ottawa, three, and in Ottawa, you've got Yoshua Bengio, and in Toronto, at the University of Toronto, you've got Geoffrey Hinton. Those three players are the key, and Canada is home to two of those three players within the AI space. So what we're trying to do here is throw a lot of money at this problem, try to figure out what solutions it's perfect for, and at the same time, trying to avoid the harm that comes with experimenting wildly with this type of technology.
You mentioned those three godfathers, and Canada's always been rich in talent, especially in the tech sector. There's no questions about that. And I think we're trying to make sure that those people don't go elsewhere and develop this kind of technology. Do you think we have the wherewithal to use this money wisely and actually make us stand out in the global sphere when it comes to AI?
I do, because 20 years ago, we threw a ton of money at artificial intelligence, and look where it's landed us today. 2 decades later, Canada is a leader. We punch above our weight when it comes to artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, and all of that that goes in between. Just the U of T, Geoffrey Hinton, his work there has led to a remarkable collection of former students going off into the world and launching their own startups. The incubation that is happening in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver is absolutely remarkable compared to what you're getting elsewhere in the world. The bigger question comes down to how do we provide a leadership role as Canadians on the world stage? We've got the reputation already. We need to take advantage of it. Some of that money will help with that. Some of that money will help attract talent. The thing is, tech bros have a huge aversion to taxes. I got a brother who's a tech bro. He's living in California right now. He will not come back to Canada, even though we've got a social safety net that he and his family very much needs. We've got an education system that rivals the world for his young children who are growing up. But for him and for every other tech person I talk to, the tax situation in this country is what keeps them from either coming back to Canada, or it keeps foreigners from coming into Canada. And the latest budget, while it earmarks $50 million over 5 years for the AI Safety Institute of Canada, $5 million between 2025 and 2026 for the AI and Data Commissioner Office, as well as other monies for this type of technology. the idea that we're going to increase the amount of money you have to give to the government when you have a win in the stock market, that capital gains tax that was included, is going to push a lot of those people away. I'm not arguing that it's money that should not be taken. If you're doing really well, you ought to be contributing to society. And so there's going to be a bit of a push-pull scenario that comes out of this. The money specifically for AI is good, but some of the other incentives that we have in this country have proven to be disincentives to trying to attract new talent. And that is going to be the balancing act that this money is going to have to play once it gets into the hands of the people who are going to be using it.
Yeah, it's not just the tech bros that are going to be unhappy, is it? I mean, some other party leaders are saying that Trudeau is out of control in this spending. Is $2.5 billion too much?
No, it's not too much. It's not too much at all. As a matter of fact, that 2.5 billion bucks will disappear quite quickly thanks to the incubation nature of Canada's ecosystem. The thing is that some of that money needs to be earmarked for taking companies to the next level. Canadians are very good at creating startups. Canadians are very good at creating technology startups. But what Canadians lack is the ability to scale those startups on the global stage. So often what we find is Canadians will come up with really great new ideas, and then they end up getting bought out by the Googles of the world, the Apples of the world. And depending on how good the technology is, they get captured to be killed as opposed to captured to be grown. And that is a risk that we need to address, because if we don't, then we're going to be throwing all of this money into creating new innovations in AI that American companies and European companies are just going to take over. And at the end of the day, it's not going to benefit Canada in the long run.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. I want to backtrack for a quick second because we talked about 50 million being earmarked towards the safety element of things. In the grand scheme of things, you look at 50 million versus 2.5 billion. Is that enough on that side of things to make sure that this doesn't go in a bad way?
Yeah, it's 10 million bucks each year for the next 5 years. That creates the AI Safety Institute of Canada to ensure the safe development and deployment of AI. I think it's a little early to know whether or not 10 million bucks is going to be enough, but I've got an itchy feeling that it isn't. AI is a huge benefit to society, or can be, but it can also be a huge problem. It's a metaphorical double-edged sword. It will help create jobs, it'll enhance creativity, it will build democracy, but it's also a threat to jobs, creativity, and democracy. And we need to ensure that that money particularly works its way backwards on my list. We need to start with democracy. We've seen perfect examples in the United States of Russian propaganda systems that leverage artificial intelligence to flood social media with disinformation, with misinformation, pitting people against each other. And, the Elon Musk bot problem didn't go away, it got worse. Much, much worse. And so much of that is fueled by algorithms. And if we don't come up with some sort of system to circumvent Russian and Chinese disinformation campaigns in Canadian democracy, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we don't really know who we're voting for. We're arguing amongst ourselves as opposed to working lockstep to sort of move the country forward in a positive way. And if we don't address those issues as part of that situation, we're in big trouble. But the other issue that doesn't get a lot of attention is the security aspect, not the security to democracy and whether we're getting disinformation, but the actual security. When you've got a large corporation, I'm going to give Amazon as an example, not that I have this as a specific use case example, but could you imagine if the algorithm that Amazon uses to determine what you see on the screen has been hijacked by a bad actor? By example, maybe this bad actor doesn't want Canadian companies to sell Canadian products on Amazon. And so they've snuck into the Amazon algorithm, and they have altered it in a manner that Amazon is completely unaware of. So that now when you do searches, Canadian products don't come up. American products come up, maybe Russian products come up, Chinese products come up, but not Canadian products. And so whether that be an Amazon, whether that be any other major corporation in this country, it could be a bank for all we know, that has found their algorithms been attacked, They don't know it, and they don't know that what it's outputting is false data. This is a thing that chief security officers are talking to me about on a regular basis as a bigger threat than ransomware, a bigger threat than identification theft, because they're going to be changing the output on algorithms, and we might not even know it.
It is terrifying when you put it in those words, but I think there's another element to this conversation that we need to have, and that is, great that, of course, the Canadian government want to pour money into innovation, but there has to be regulation as well. Where does Canada stand on that front at the moment, regulating what is becoming AI, what is going to be created?
I'm a little nervous about that, to be quite frank. And it stems not so much from Canada as it does the United States. You recall when Mark Zuckerberg had to go up to Capitol Hill and answer questions to Congress about how Facebook works. And these octogenarians who probably, because I know from personal experience, are still getting their assistants to print out their email messages so that they can dictate replies. These are the people in the United States who are making legislative decisions about how to regulate things like social media. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand any of this. Canada is, to a degree, in the same boat. We've got politicians who don't fully understand their file, and we also have American-style politics coming into play, where one side is focused on culture wars, while the other side is very earnestly trying to get a job done, and they don't understand the rules of politics have changed. And so you're going to get disinformation, misinformation in that process as we try to come up with legislative rules that make a lot of sense. And the perfect example of it was when Canada tried to legislate social media for the news industry. The solution was, hey, if Facebook and Google are adding links to all of our journalistic product that gets them advertising dollars, why should the news organizations not get some of that advertising money? They put together a bill that became law that led to Canadians not being able to see news on their social media as a result of that. And it was a very ham-fisted approach that people within the industry were saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is how you fix it. And they ignored it all. So I'm really nervous about the ability for politicians to determine what good legislation looks like. The flip side of that is that you can't leave it up to the tech bros either. We saw what happened over at OpenAI with Sam Altman. OpenAI was originally designed to be an altruistic organization that was not profit-driven. They weren't going to make decisions based upon money. And then at the end of the day, that's exactly what happened.
You bring up a really interesting point with the social media, because that brings me to my next question for you, which is how do casual consumers, everyday people, how are we going to be affected by all this money being spent on AI? Are we going to feel anything other than the political conversation and other companies, benefiting from grants and various elements like that?
I feel like, we should just roll a clip from the scene of The Graduate. Get into plastics, son. There's a variation on that for the 21st century. Get into AI, son. So a lot of that money is going to trickle down into the education system. It's going to drive young Canadians to get into the industry, this nascent industry that will be so ubiquitous in the next 5 to 10 years that you really need people who are capable and competent of doing this. The perfect example is I talked to a chief technology officer at a major Canadian company whose name I'm not permitted to discuss because we were under Chatham House rules in the meeting. But they just hired a prompt engineer for $300,000. That's the job you want your kid to have.
Wow. Okay. Prompt engineer. I'm going to look that up right now. But no, it's you make a really good point. And playing with AI and crafting the right prompts really does change the outcome. Michael, thank you for breaking this down with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I gotta dive into some of the things that you're doing because it's super interesting. We want to take advantage of you being here, and obviously look to the future and look a little bit at the past. So stick around. When we come back, Michael Hainsworth will be with us right here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back.